Bretto, the 2020 Wellness Summit virtual experience was a hit with the hundreds of attendees that joined us online from all over the country.
Oh, it was MP. Linda said, my first summit. Thanks so much and loving the outfits.
Bronwyn Lacer said, epic!
Cheryl Rennie said, thank you for a fabulous summit. It was my first one, but already I can't wait for the next one.
And Vivian Derwent said, brilliant as always, and all from the comfort of my own lounge room.
So the question I keep getting asked, MP, is what happens in 2021?
Well, Bretto, the answer is no one really knows. But we do know that there will be a wellness summit, if not in person, then another edutaining virtual experience.
Yeah, that's right, MP. And we've released a small allocation of just 100 tickets to the 2021 Wellness Summit. And you can join us for only $97.
And the best news is your ticket is fully flexible.
So join us in person if you can make it, or join us for a virtual experience if you can't, or if we're not allowed to.
Whatever the case, the 2021 Wellness Summit promises to be bigger and better than ever.
Yeah, MP, and after Queen in 2019 and Gloria Gaynor, Hugo Weaving and Guy Pearce in 2020, everyone wants to know who will be the closing act in 2021.
Well, Bretto, you have to do what everyone else does. Register to find out.
Oh, I'm in. 100 tickets, folks, only $97. Get your tickets now at thewellnesssummit.com.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, where inspired women talk about the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness. We ask, in what ways can we show up more fully, live more meaningfully, parent more wholly, and love more unconditionally? How can we mine the wisdom from the experiences of our lives and expand into those challenges? If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs, so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way. And if you feel like giving a little back to this free content, please become a patron of the show and receive extra member benefits for less than a coffee a month. Or you can leave a review on iTunes and Facebook, all of which helps the podcast keep going and reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul. Head on over to patreon.com/NTM podcast to find out more. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner, and today's podcast is called Birthing Julie's Book, because it is literally like a gestation of a baby and a birth. So we're going to have, hopefully, a candid conversation around how big that journey has been. I think that perhaps often isn't talked about because it's just so fun to write a book.
It kind of happens in the wings and in the depths and in the behind closed doors. And
yeah, right.
You're kind of sharing the tiniest of snippets, and I get like kind of glimpses of your turmoil through the process.
Yeah, it's been like crazy intense. I actually can't remember a time I've been forced to grow so quickly in a lot of different ways. It's literally like having a baby and having an identity crush and rebirth in a lot of ways. So deep, profound learning. So before I do that, I'd love to remind you to jump on to nourishingthemother.com.au and sign up to join our tribe, where once every so often we let you know what's happening in the world, what podcasts we're where, so that you can choose to dip your toe in. So please drop in your email at nourishingthemother.com.au. All right. So I feel a little bit removed from it because my nervous system has come down from the extreme level that it was on.
And I mean, it was extreme for a reason, right? Because you ditched a whole copy How many thousand words are we talking here?
60,000 words.
So you had 60,000 words written, which you largely wrote in the first couple of lockdowns. I don't know. You got it. We talk about it being a gestation because you really began it in the first of the lockdowns.
Yeah. So here's how it worked. It started off as the lifetime dream that I've always wanted to write a book. I just never had, and I've started and stopped little projects at different times and they haven't really gone anywhere because then I like die on them after a little while. And so it's like the dream of becoming a mother one day, isn't it? That you go, I know my heart yearns for that. I just don't know exactly the right timing or what that's going to look like, you know. So anyway, I was talking with Carly who'd written her book and I was like, no, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And she was like, okay. And then because I do things hard and fast, if you're not going to like go hard or go home because I don't have time to fuck around is basically how it works in my head. So I said to myself, all right, we're in this first lockdown. Life is way less crazy for me than what it normally is, which means there's drains in other ways, but there's a huge vastness of just physical time that I don't have normally. And our afternoons and evenings are not so under the pump. So I said to myself, all right, you need 30,000 words to write a book. I'm going to write that 30,000 words in 30 days. That was my challenge, my self-challenge. I didn't tell anyone else really about that challenge. It was just like
your own.
Yeah, because that's my strong masculine, right? I go vision, goal, competition, boom, creates greatness. That's where competition is in its light. So I'm competing against myself in my mind. So I set up a practice where every single morning for 30 days, I got up at 5 a.m. and I worked for 2 to 3 hours, depending on kids' needs, every day for 30 days. And at the end of that, I had a 30,000 word book. So the thing was, as I continued to review this book post that 30 days, it had started off where I was like, it'll just be the foray into masculine and feminine. And it'll just be like this lovely, empowering, you know, here's what you can do with it. And here's how it can change your relationship and how amazing. And then as I started reviewing my 30,000 words, because I just wrote for 30 days. I didn't do any level of editing. So then comes the editing, which is actually 5,000 times harder than the writing, which I did not know because the writing I fucking loved. Being in the dark, I had my routine down pat. Like I set up everything the night before. So I literally got up, press hit on the coffee machine, press go on the hot water. I always had hot water and coffee, and had my blanket, had my Uggies, had my AirPods, had my music, had my whole setup. So every single night I had my setup so that in the morning, just had to hit go, and it was delightful. Like I can't even tell you how delightful it was. It was winter. So it was like dark. And I didn't put any lights on. So I was dark, just me and my mind. And
like you're in your cave.
Oh, it was so fabulous. I loved it. So then comes the editing, and the editing is brutal because I was reading passages going, what the fuck did you write there? Or what does that even mean? And then I started to go, but that's so surface. You can't know that unless you know this. And if you don't know this, then you can't really know that. And all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but over the course of the next few months, the 30,000 word book became a 60,000 word book. So I pretty much rewrote the first 30,000 words, one section at a time as I was editing, and then added in what I perceived was all the missing pieces to an in-depth understanding. Because I'm not here to just give you pieces that you don't really understand. I'm here to go solidness, understand what's here. So through the process of writing that, I wrote the 60,000 words, and then I hired a self-publishing company who manages the entire situation. So it's thousands and thousands of dollars. It's a massive investment. And so Nick and I kind of riffed about it for a while, about whether it was something I was really going to leap into and all this sort of jazz. And in the end, I said to him, look, I don't know if this is going to work or not work, or somehow one day pay back or not, because I know you don't write a book to make money, because the books don't make money. So you're only writing this because you are so impassioned by it that you just have to.
Yeah.
Or other authors, and it's certainly what the book publishing place says, you have to have an action plan for how you're going to make money back on this book. And there's people who do all sorts of things with the book that they write. So I wasn't really solid on either of those, but knew I couldn't not do it. So Nick backed me and he was like, yeah, if you're feeling it, you have to do it. And I was like, yeah, I do. So I said yes to this company. It's the biggest investment I've ever made for anything up until this point in time in terms of business strategy. So it was massive for me to financially back myself enough to do this. And then they have this process. So it's this timeline of every week there's these targets. And the self-editing process for that is like shoot you in the head. I wanted to I don't even know, smack a hole. I wanted to stab pencils through the book. It was just like horrendous. I hated it. I hated editing so hard. I can't even explain to you. So the mental slog of continuously, like the amount I read that 60,000 words over and over and over so many times, I can't even tell you. And having to pull your own editing apart. So it's not joyful. It's like, it's hard. So having to have, by that point in time, I'm not doing the morning thing, because now life's kind of starting to tickle back and I've got I can't just take pause on a month. So now I have to fit this editing in around the rest of my work obligations and family and kids, and I'm feeling resentful and not lit up about it. So it was a really mentally hard slog to keep myself going, because it would have been easier to quit, honestly. So I did all of that. And at the end of that, then you have, you choose 10 beta readers. So I had 11, and you want to choose beta readers that go across a variety of understandings with you. So I kind of chose 3-ish on a spectrum of haven't worked with me at all, completely new, to have worked with me for a really long time. And I pretty much chose 3 on a spectrum across that. That's how I chose my beta readers. So they all get sent the book and then they edit it. So I had 11 and the publisher had said, we need 10. People get usually 3 back, and then you make another edit or 2 based on the reviews that you get back from essentially people who would potentially read your book. So I got all 11 back. Not 3, 11.
So great. And then what the fuck am I doing with all this?
So then I had to slog my way through 11 personal edits of what felt really personal. Like that in and of itself is a really brutal process. And they were all beautiful. Like, please don't think that I'm not saying they didn't do exactly what I needed, wanted, desired, and did it with love. 100% they did. But on a personal level, and I know that objectively, but on a personal level, it's still 11 people's opinions on something that you've put your heart and soul into.
So it's like a child.
That's hard.
It's like you're putting you've birthed something into the world that is your heart and soul, and then you're inviting.
Yes, right. And so people are going, no, its eyes are too close together. Your kid's a bit ugly. You know, like that's what it feels like. It's a really hard process. Personally hard, but I'm also completely aware that on an emotional level, that's irrational, and I had to separate. Like that was part of what this psychological, spiritual process was for me, was this detangling of identity and capacity to show up and put yourself out in the world, knowing that there was critique there, and what do you do with the critique, and do you turn it into something that makes you better, or do you crumble in the face of it and spiral into self-minimization? Like even that is a practice, and I did that practice 11 times over the course of essentially 2 weeks. So I really felt like at each one of these steps, I'm rebirthing myself. And here I had 11 ways of rebirthing myself. So I go through all of that. And I'm ready finally for oh no, and then you know what happens next? Next is I have the meeting with the team, the book team, and we talk about the book cover. And we come up with a concept or an idea that we think is going to work. The publisher goes, yep, I have my absolute best artist. She's amazing. She's my absolute favorite. She's done all of these books. She's showing me all of these books. She's going to be perfect. And I was like, all right, okay. So she sends it back. About 2 days later, she comes back to me and she says, so this is unusual. I've never heard of this happening before, but this artist has refused to do your book cover because she's uncomfortable with the content. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Then I made a dream. I was like, I think she might need the book. It didn't go down very well.
My first thought is like, it's a trigger. That's exactly
right. Exactly what I thought. So I didn't take it personally, but at the same time, there's this tiny part of me that's like, ooh, am I ready to put the thing out in the world that someone doesn't want to even have their name to?
Mm.
Am I ready for that?
Yeah.
Because in and of itself, that's the conversation, isn't it? Is to grow and be, in inverted commas, bigger in the world, you have to have a tougher skin.
Mm.
Because every time you grow, you also grow your haters.
Mm-hmm.
And every time you're more certain and clearer and without the bullshit on what you're saying and what you stand for, the more people you trigger.
Mm-hmm.
So I was also sitting with myself going, this is it, right? This is my step up. If I really want to grow and be seen in the world, how am I going to roll here? Because if the universe is going, all right, let's test, let's see, are you ready?
Mm.
What am I going to do with this lesson? Am I going to say, oh, I can't handle it, universe, so I'm not really ready to grow?
Mm.
Or I'm going to say, yep, I'm the woman with the book that an artist didn't want to do a cover for.
Mm.
Yep, that feels better. I can totally see that she's clearly got some sexual hang-ups that I could probably help her with. So that conversation happened. So 2 days later, the book goes off for the first professional edit, which again is thousands of dollars. And I'm told, it's the most in-depth review and, is where I'm going to be told, well, this bit probably needs to come out or this needs to be added in. The editor people said, look, usually it's an add-in because we need more clarity, more than a takeout. So I'm thinking my 60,000 word book's probably going to turn into an 80,000 word book. Who knows? And in the back of my mind, I'm like, no, really, like I'm thinking about this woman with the art. The content in here, I know could change your life. I know it could change your life. If you just took a drop and applied it to your relationship, it could change your life. So I'm sitting here thinking, I'm almost a little bit excited to see what this editor says, because I could change her life.
There's butterflies and rainbows and it's all twinkling around you.
Well, I'm like, oh, she's going to love me. She's going to be like, that was such a privilege to be paid to read that book. I got so much out of it. I mean, I'm thinking in my head, that's what's going to happen. I'm having this fantasy in my own mind. I didn't share that with anybody else, but this is what is happening in my head for the whole week. And I'm like,
it's like a little kid at Christmas.
So the review comes. And I'm sitting at my dining room table having my morning coffee with Nick because it's the day, and I open my laptop up and I open it up and I'm like, what the fuck? As I start reading through this, because by about line 8, this woman is so triggered and revolted by what I have to say that I have to keep looking up from my computer going, oh my God, Nick, she's just said this. And he's like, what? Is this what an editor's supposed to be saying? And I'm like, I don't know. She's so fucking triggered. And this is like, having been a lecturer in the university education system for a number of years, I kind of have a lens on academics that I previously have not had at any other point in my life. And here's a woman who's arguing my masculine and feminine spiritual energetic principles like an academic.
Not a book editor.
In her masculine. And she's so triggered. She's so triggered and arguing, like literally arguing with me at nearly every paragraph. So she's not editing, she's arguing. That by the time I'm about a third of the way through the book, she's so triggered. She's completely revealed herself. I know what her relationship's like. I know what her sexual issues will be. I know what the dysfunction is. That's how triggered she is, right? Because when we're triggered, we're completely revealed.
Well, all of her cards are on the table then, right?
Right.
There's nothing that's unseen.
There's nothing that's unseen. But I was so mortally wounded by the experience of not having a voice because I couldn't argue back with her.
Yeah, you just had to take it.
I just had to take it. So it's like being boxed in a boxing ring where you don't even have your gloves on.
Yeah.
So here's this baby of mine that I've now spent 8.5 months of my life on and invested a significant amount of money and time in. And I am feeling into this going, this has been brutal for me. Like the amount of time and ways I've had to contort myself, my space, my world in order to create this is massive. And here it is. And I'm expecting the crowning moment where it's just loved. And instead, it's completely hated, totally disintegrated. And every single moment is like, I can't even explain it to you. It was so brutal that it took me all of that day to finish reading her comments because I had to keep having breaks just to regulate my nervous system. It was hard. And even I've got Nick, who's relatively, he's pretty level-headed. And he's sitting there going, is this what an editor's supposed to do? Is this what a professional edit is? And I'm like, I didn't think it was. Going, oh, I know. Maybe this is what they get paid to do. They get paid to tear you apart so that you're really ready, like in a presidential, debate or something.
Yeah,
maybe they're paid to tear you apart. And I'm going, yeah, maybe. And it was that moment that in my mind, it flipped from being so personally assaulting to, okay, all right, this is preparing me. And I've just got to learn how to rumble. So I read the comments the rest of that day. By the time I got to the end of the book, I was like, this is fucking ridiculous. Like, I'm paying you to edit my book. And instead of editing it, you've argued every single one of my philosophies.
That's not editing.
It's not editing. Right. So I go back to the company that I'm working with for this publishing. And I say to them, essentially that. I said, look, the editor is clearly triggered by my text. How much should I be taking on board? And the question essentially I got back was, what do you mean? I said, well, she's argued every single one of my points so thoroughly. It's essentially every second paragraph, another argument. So whatever has happened in the back end has been handled marvelously well. Because then the company comes back to me and says, no, she agrees that was not what she was paid to do. She was really triggered and she would like to re-edit it if you'll let her. So instantaneously I go, oh, okay, thank fuck, because I'm not reading, this isn't actually what it was supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It isn't a legitimate edit. This is a person who's very personally affronted by what I'm suggesting. And so that also soothed my mental state enough that I was like, okay, so I'm not like crazy person, being the victim of oh, she's so assaulting. It's legitimate. Everyone else has seen that and read that. Yeah. It's legitimately a thing. All right. that makes me feel better because I no longer feel like the crazy person. But by that point, we're sort of day 3. So I got the review on Monday. This is now Wednesday. And over the course of that 2 to 3 days, which is what I always do, if I ever receive negative feedback, I read it or listen to it over and over and over and over and over and over and over until I no longer have an emotional rise to it. So it's my training ground. So that's how I create expanded safety in my world, is by making myself safe within whatever that conflict is. So that's what I was doing with the book review. I was reading it over and over and over and over and over, which was assaulting, reading all of those words all of the time. I was like, okay, you know, and by the time it had gotten to Wednesday, that process had worked well enough for me that I was like, actually, I think in the end, she's given me the greatest gift in the whole world. It wasn't what I paid for, and it wasn't what I thought I wanted, but I can 100% see that it's what I needed, because what I'd done by then was collated all of her comments and grouped them into essentially her arguments. What I have is a spreadsheet of every negative criticism, hater, naysayer, negative book review, and misguided understanding of what I'm saying that I can conceive is possible. So that is a great gift. If I know that if I'm on a PR journey with this book and an interviewer is equally as triggered, I already know what their arguments are going to be, because who they are. So I was looking at that going, this is a really big gift for me, because I now get to decide with each one of these arguments, have I answered them well enough in my book? Do I have the answers that I could, if I was asked them in an interview, I could verbally respond with? Or does it need something else? So I'd already done that flip by Wednesday. So I wrote back to this company and said, no, actually, essentially that. So what I realized, and because she just hadn't understood it was the problem. She deflected and defended straight up and hadn't understood what I thought was simplistic. But what I realized was, by virtue of falling out of love with my book, by virtue of starting to see it through her lens, when I reread my book again on Wednesday, I could see how she'd gotten lost, which I hadn't seen up until then. So I had written the book in a very poetic style of language, and it was so in-depth and thorough from what I understood that it was more like a Sufi scripture. And what she needed was a plain Jane homily. That wasn't what I delivered. I delivered a scripture thinking, here are the keys to like exponential expansion. Surely you can draw the parallels. I can, but she couldn't. She couldn't read what was written there and pull it down in a meaningful way. But I realized I'd written the book that required you to do that. I'd given you all of the information and philosophies, and I'm like, isn't it amazing? Can you see it? But no, she needed the homily that made it relevant in a much smaller, she just needed the one passage out of the Bible and make it relevant to my life, because she didn't understand it. All of her arguments were because she didn't understand it. So I wrote back to them and said, no, I'm good. I got what I needed, even though it wasn't what I wanted. I'm grateful. It's fine. So then I had to decide what I was going to do with that. Was I going to back myself and keep the book as it is? Or was I going to give her the homily that she needed? And Nick and I went backwards and forwards this Thursday. Nick and I went backwards and forwards and backwards. And he's like, just back yourself, Jules. Like, just fucking do it. Like, just back yourself. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I could. But there's this tiny part of me that knows I could write the homily. And I'm kind of entertaining that too. He was like, Jesus. Okay. Because this is 9 months of my life thousands of dollars. What am I going to do here? So it's Friday, and I'm ticking away in my head. Could I do it? Could I do it? Am I going to do it? Could I do it? Am I going to do it? Because my next deadline is Tuesday, and it's Friday. And I have to have a book by Tuesday if I'm going to keep going with this thousands of dollar process that I've signed up for. How the fuck am I going to do it? Can I even do it? What does it even look like? And so I decided to entertain it and chuck out all of the rules and ask myself, I wrote the book completely differently. I asked myself, all right, I have the woman who I don't have yet, right? The women who loved my book because they already speak that language. Here I have an editor who does not speak my language, has no idea about it. How do I help her see? How do I help her see? And that's all I kept asking myself. What is she missing? How do I help her see? How do I help her see that? And I just jotted down some very vague ideas. I had like 6 dot points. And it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I rewrote an introduction, because introduction's always where it starts for me. And I was like, no, I think I've got it. I understand now. I understand. And I said to Nick, here's where I'm at. I think I can do this. I want to do it because I really want to. I want the opportunity to meet the woman I haven't met before and maybe gleam the slightest sliver of light into her world that maybe not, but maybe there's something here that changes her relationship and therefore humanity. If we changed relationships, we would change humanity. I've got to try. And I said to him, the only way that I'm going to get this done is if I do it hard and fast. And that means I know I have to go gangbusters and I have to be dawn to dusk writing. And I've only got 4 days till Tuesday. I can't parent. I can't have any other responsibilities. I just fucking have to do this. And I totally trust my masculine force. So I can feel this building. Now I've got the inspiration and the insight, the understanding, my why. Now I have my why and the clarity. I can feel this mounting volcano of energy, which is always what my masculine feels like. And I'm like, I know the minute I hit go on that button, I could write this book in 2 days. And I'm going to think, I think I could write it in 2 days. And I'm shit fucking scared I can't write it in 2 days. But maybe I could. I'm really scared I can't. But if I don't try, I'll never know. And he was like, let's do it. Let's do that. So from 3 o'clock Friday afternoon, I went into my own personal lockdown and rewrote my book from scratch. As it had so happened, I booked in a healing session from weeks and weeks ago for a tantric healing session on the Saturday morning. So I still had that session as a break from my mental work and actually shifted something really profound from my childhood in that. And then straight from that went, right, I'm going to get out of the house, take my kids to the park. At the park, I got a migraine. I haven't had a migraine in 20 years. The last time I had a migraine was when my dad died. So I start getting visual disturbances, and it looks like in my eyes a whole lot of diamonds, just reflective diamonds all over my eyes. And I'm going, this is really fucking weird. Surely this can't be an aura. I'm saying, and it's persisting. I'm going, no, now it's like a dancing line of diamonds. This is really visual disturbances that happen with migraine auras. So I say to Nick, I'm getting a migraine. I have to go home. And he's like, what? Like, that's never happened. So we go home and I lie in bed, and of course I'm struck with a migraine, most horrendous pain. And in my head, in my mind, I'm going, I'm not writing my book. I'm not, it's Saturday afternoon. I am out for the count with this migraine. It's fucking horrendous. I've had this massive, now I realize in hindsight, it was probably a healing crisis. So I think whatever I'd hit on that Saturday morning, had produced then this migraine later on that I had to move through my body. So I was wiped out all of Saturday afternoon. By 7 o'clock, I was fucking exhausted. So then, long story short, I jump onto Louise Hay, right? What's migraines? Okay, cure for them is self-pleasure. So I concentrate on giving myself a tantric self-pleasuring orgasm and feeding it into my brain, which is like fucking explosive. One of the most amazing brain orgasms I've ever had. Clears my migraine pain instantaneously. So, you know, at 10 to 7, I was probably self-pleasuring. By 7 o'clock, I'm out in the lounge room going, pain's gone, I'm okay. But now I'm fucking exhausted. I have to go to bed and actually sleep because I've just been in pain for 4 hours instead of sleeping. And I go to bed, and from 7 o'clock until like 6 a.m. the next morning, I just keep getting bliss waves. It is like the best tantric experience I've ever had in my life. Bliss wave after bliss wave after bliss wave. I was like, oh my God, this is like the best night I've ever had in my life. Like, this is like amazing. So I wake up at like probably 5:30 Sunday morning, and I'm like, boom, baby, I'm back to life. Like, I feel fucking amazing. I can't even explain to you what has happened over the course of this night, but my brain is like, I feel like diamonds. That's what my body feels like. So I just start writing. And I write continuously. I hit a brick wall that night, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. I can't do this. And he's like, you can do this. I can't. I'm ignoring my children. He's like, you can do this. We can do this. You know, we're doing this. I'm like, okay. And it's, you know, we go Sunday night, I'd done a live for Embark and had this little like hurrah moment where I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Because I said to you, Bridgie, I was talking about Hildegard, and Hildegard used to channel divine messages from God. And we realized through what's written in history is migraines. So she would literally get an aura where they knew she was being struck by God. And then in the actual pain phase of the migraine, she was channeling, and then she would experience a euphoria afterwards. I never knew there was a euphoria that came after migraines. And I'm like, oh my God, that's what I had. I'm just like Hildegard. And so I'm like now like really on fire. I'm like, I'm just like Hildegard. This is amazing. You know, I'm going to be able to do this. Nick's like, actually, you're nothing like Hildegard, but sure, righto. No worries.
You keep running that train.
Keep going. That's fine. So I'm working. I work till probably 10:30 each night. I'm up by 5:30 the next morning, writing again. Nick had taken Monday off work, so I just keep going. Halfway through Monday, I'm like, oh God, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm ignoring my children. I haven't seen them since Friday. What am I doing? You know, blah, blah, blah. And he just walked out, and he was so beautiful. He would bring me drinks and food because I'm so in my masculine. I'm not connected to my body at all, right? Not connected. So because I'm so full force masculine, he's so full force feminine. So he's coming out just to rub my back and bring me drinks and food, like the nourishing, right? The service. We talked about service last year. That's one of the gifts of the feminine, is the nourishment, because there's connection to the physical body, which in your head and consciousness and masculine there simply isn't. And so you can derail the physical form, right? So here he is doing all of these things, and he would come to me every time I was having a meltdown about not parenting, and he was like, Jules, we are so fine. We're so fine. And we're so proud of you. You can do this. And then he'd even like sometimes go, isn't that right, kids? And they're all like, yeah, you can do it. You know, there's nothing. Okay. And I'd go back and start again. So this goes on Monday. I still haven't finished by Monday night. So I'm starting to feel a little bit crushed. So my deadline's Tuesday. Can I actually even get this done? Can I is this it? Am I chucking the towel in? Is this all over? Get up Tuesday, Nick's got to be back at work. So Heath and Jade decide that they're going to babysit for the day so that I can finish the book and keep writing. So they babysit and actually have the best time, all of the siblings together. Nick's working. I finish the book at 6 p.m. that night. And I am a train wreck. I am completely obliterated. I haven't been in my body since Friday. I have just used my head and my brain and gone like a bat out of hell in every conceivable moment. I've just pushed and kept going to the point where now I'm like, I've got nothing left.
Wow.
But I've written a book in 3 days. I've done it. So the me that knew I could do it on Friday, even though I was shit scared I couldn't have a book by Tuesday, I've done it. I have a book. So I message these editors and I say, okay, I have rewritten the book. What is the process here? Because it's now not the same book. So it needs another edit. And they're like, sure, it's this many thousands of dollars. And I was like, well, I'm unwilling to pay that. Yeah. So it was the conversation I had on Monday. This is the conversation with them on Monday. And so they were like, look, leave it with us. Give us your ballpark and we'll see what we can do and who we can find. So I'm not even sure at this point in time. I haven't picked up my phone again. I'm not even sure if when I open my phone, I'm going to be up for a crossroads of whether this book is being published or not, because it requires this many thousands of dollars that I wasn't willing to invest, whether I was even going to do it, whether I was going to open my phone up and crumble, and this whole 4 days and pushing my body to oblivion and all the things involved in that was even going to be worth it. And I open up my phone and the messenger from the editor is the woman who had already edited my book had come back to them and said she would dearly love another opportunity to re-edit my book. And because I'd asked on Monday, I'd said, look, I'm open to her redoing it, but I don't need her to like edit it. I just need to know if she understands it or not. That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
Is, does she understand it or not? I didn't know how many thousands of dollars even she was going to charge me for that. So I opened up my phone at 6 o'clock, having literally just finished my book, to a message saying she wants to do it and she's super grateful that you're willing to give her another go and she doesn't want to charge you for it. And I like burst into tears. I was like a sobbing mess.
Oh God.
And I wrote back and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have a cry and a whine, and then I'll upload my book too.
Amazing. And
that's where we're at. So then it really took me, so that was only this week, and that was Tuesday. It really took me until yesterday afternoon to physically recover from that. And because I'd been dealing with my emotional turmoil for the last, and the deep, book work for the last week, I then had a week worth of everything I hadn't done. All of the groups, all of the emails, all of the messages, all of the messengers, all of the clients I hadn't booked in. Like, I had a solid week of overwhelm that I had ignored while I went through this process of, I think, psychological upheaval and identity recreation, and essentially then book recreation. So I just every day worked on one part of that as I chopped my way through it once again. And yesterday, Saturday, I was sitting down and Nick looked at me and goes, are you okay? And I was like, no, I've just realized I'm actually having like a mini panic attack about the fact that I don't have anything to do right now. Like, that's how intense and how highly wired my nervous system had become. Because here I was with nothing to do, and I was hyperventilating nearly about the fact that I've forgotten something. There's something I'm supposed to be doing. So we just spent yesterday really uncoiling my nervous system. So today I feel back to normal, but I get my review back tomorrow.
Wow.
So I don't know.
Gosh, that's a mammoth. What an absolute journey. Far out. That really is like the most enormous gestation, birth, unbecoming to become story, right?
I didn't realize what it was going to be, but it was only when I realized this book that I was like, it's been 9 months, because the part of my process also with I can't just tick away at this again was I'm so done. I realized I tracked it. I was at 39 weeks pregnant with this book. And I was like, this is exactly like being pregnant, where you're like, I cannot be here anymore. Get out of my body. And that was kind of my thing with the book too, is I had been not leaking, but there's always been a stream of my energy to this book for the past 9 months. And I was like, I can't do that anymore. This has to be done. This has to be birthed and finished. So it was also part of it's like hard and fast. It's done now. It's got to be whatever this is by Tuesday. It has to be over. I can't be here anymore. And the fact that that was 9 months, I just thought was very poignant. I think there's something extraordinary about gestating something and then giving birth to it in the format that looks like. And of course, along the way, having these grand fantasies about what it was going to be, and then the harsh realities of what that looks like when you're asked to be pulled apart, and the identities and the fantasies that you have to be deconstructed. And that was definitely, and has been, and I imagine until it's done, will continue to be the process for me with this book. So that's it.
It's enormous. Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
It's a pleasure. It's been a really big deal. So we will see what the review holds.
And everybody stay tuned for, what that review holds.
So to connect with you, Bridgie.
SuburbanSandcastles.com, and you, Jules?
Is thepleasurenutritionist.com.
Remember to nourish the woman to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
And if you want to support Nourishing the Mother and all the late nights, the early mornings, the blood, sweat and tears we pour into our art, then please go to patreon.com/NTM podcast and become our patron. As a patron, you're helping all of the cost of operating this podcast, the hosting, the editing, the transcription, helping all of that be completely covered, and joining a community who are all about honouring our journeys and continuing to open. The more support we have, the longer we can last. So become a patron. We'd love to have you. Go to patreon.com/NTM podcast. We literally couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for listening, and please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.